All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Megan, if you haven't already met me, and I'm the manager of alumni career programs for the Alumni Association. So we're very excited that you're able to join us for our second Young Alumni Conference preview event with Austin. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we'll be taking questions at the end and throughout, Austin, if you'd like. Feel free to submit them through the chat like we've been doing. You probably already were prompted, but this will be recorded. So just so you know, by being in the room, you acknowledge and consent to your image, likeness, or voice being recorded. Speaking of recording, a recording and slide from today's webinar will be available and shared with you following today's session, so you can look back. And so without further ado, I'll introduce Austin. So Austin joins us from the class of 2011 and is a life coach who partners with people to manifest their desires through personal empowerment while living a life grounded in ownership and possibility. He works in tandem with those who are ready to purposely create new experiences in their life through forward-focused coaching. He's the founder of Raw Coaching, and as a global top sales achiever at Gartner, he knows how to work effectively and efficiently when supporting others to reach their goals. He's an active cornhole enthusiast, an avid traveler, and loves trying new things as he explores the world. He loves football and was a football athlete here at UMD. And in his spare time, he co-hosts the podcast Purposefully, which, correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
That's right.
Where he helps even more individuals find their personal success. He's trained by Accomplishment Coaching, which is a world-renowned international coach federation, and it's an accredited training program. So Austin, I'm looking forward to your presentation today, and we'll let you take it away when you're ready.
Cool. Thank you, Megan. It's always so odd when somebody else giving your introduction, like, oh, wait, that's me. Yeah. So thank you. Super appreciate it. And welcome, team. Again, in my work, and I'll share a little bit more about my background in a moment, I host a lot of these trainings and facilitations. So it's actually kind of nice to have somebody introduce me for once. So thank you again, Megan. And really excited to be here partnering with all of you today. It's in addition, I am also the president of the New York Terps Alumni Association in New York City. So I share that in the sense that Terp alumni and our engagement is something that's very, very, very near and dear to my heart. So it's really cool to be in a platform where I get to take all of my Terp love and actually get to integrate that a little bit with what I do in or where I spend the majority of my time, which is actually helping people get clear and make distinctions on what is it that they need. And for today's concept, this idea of wellness, we'll do a lot and set some frameworks for what that is. So overall, just very, very excited to be here. Before I start any of my trainings in here, I'm actually going to share my screen so you have some things to walk along with us, just to set some guidelines for this. And I also share this because my intention for today's experience is not to just be me talking at you the whole time. Right? There's going to be elements where we're going to engage with one another. We're going to have group shares. We're going to be activating the chat. We're going to be in breakout rooms. So these are just engagement guidelines and agreements. I understand some people might be like, oh, yeah, I can't be on camera right now. Maybe I'm doing other things. Maybe I got kids, dogs, who knows in the background. But if you are able, we do invite you to. And a big portion of that is for what I just prefaced, is that a lot of our engagement today is going to be sharing and in the group and in our breakout rooms. And we really want to bring presence and honor and hone this space today. And lastly, we're talking about this idea of wellness. And I also want to preface that we're not looking at things through the lens of right or wrong here. Like, there are some people who will be like, wellness, like, what's that? Like, it sounds good in theory, but I actually don't know what that means or how I do it. And other people are like, Austin, step aside. I'm a wellness guru. I could probably lead this. And wherever you are in the spectrum is actually A-okay for today. The intention is actually just to be able to equip and share honestly what our relationship has been with this. And ultimately, how does that contrast to where is it that we want to go? So I always ask that if people do share, they do share or feel comfortable sharing vulnerably, and it's also received with a ton of empathy. And so if you're affirmed with that, if you can just take your hands, do what I'm doing, and just make a little square like this, boom. That justifies, yeah, I see you, Nicole, I see you, that this is just a safe space. So thank you. To give you just a little preview about where we're going to go today, we're going to talk about essentially, like, what is this concept of wellness and what does it mean for me, right? We're going to further look at some distinctions between what are some wellness practices and what are wellness structures to make sure you have a good capacity around what both of those things mean. And ultimately, the intention is to be able to take this and actually position you to be really prescriptive in identifying what are some practices that you can start implementing today. Yes, today, that can actually start enhancing your experience with wellness as you are in like building out your careers and just living a full holistic life experience. So if you haven't already got the picture today, today's theme is wellness. Does anybody have any questions about the agenda or anything, or is looking at this being like, this is not the staffing meeting I thought I was supposed to be at? Or you have to ask with virtual meetings, you never know, we're just popping in from one to the other. Okay, cool. I'll take the silences. All right, Austin, you're good. Keep it going. All right. So yeah, let's get down to the basics and wellness. I love it because there's so many different definitions of this. So I'll talk a little bit more. I'll offer a formal definition, then we'll actually talk about what the experience of wellness means. So wellness is a state of being in good health, especially as an actively pursued goal. And this is the Oxford definition of it, which I think is a good little framework of it. I like to think of this as, if we peel the onion back a little bit more, the act of wellness is any act that is focused on prioritizing and practicing habits that support physical, mental, emotional, and a spiritual like well-being and outcomes. So essentially, it is any sort of activities that holistically support like how you show up. Like that's why there's, you'll hear a lot of correlation between wellness and well-being. And in theory, with wellness practices are actively honored and empowered, we get from this place of, all right, I just having to get by, but I'm actually super empowered and I'm thriving in the spaces that I'm in. And so we'll put a little bit more definition around what that means. But holistically, how are we taking care of ourselves? What are the practice, the acts, the attention, energies that go into that? And like, so it really kind of, if we're looking at, okay, wellness, well, why does wellness matter for anybody, but especially for recent grads or people who are just entering the workforce? You're at a very impressionable time in terms of setting your wellness foundation. And many of the lessons, there's been a lot of research done on this, that the lessons that you learn within your first few years of your job can have a lasting impact on the foundation for your wellness practices as you advance in your career. So I can't tell you how many people that I speak with who are in their 40s and 50s, who let's say are high on the higher end of the spectrum of consistently experiencing burnout, overworking, not having poor work-life balances, for people who didn't in the start of their careers have conversations around what wellness means, what balance looks like for them. So we're going to talk through just a couple of these reasons here. And I don't think any of these will be earth shattering, but I just want it to be super clear as to like why this does matter and why we're looking at this. Anybody familiar with the term of hustle culture? Yeah, we got to do the most work. Who can work 14, 15 hours a day? Who needs vacations? We'll provide you lunch or dinner if you stay and, continuously work. And so I say that a little facetiously, but in many particular corporate settings, there has been a bias or judgment around what it means to work hard. And this hustle culture is one of the big proponents of which creates this experience of burnout, where people feel that they don't have anything left in the tank to give outside of their work experience. It has been shown that your actual work experience does suffer just having like water drinking from a fire hose in terms of energy being output. So wellness in itself and prioritizing these habits can be extraordinarily beneficial in, again, putting against hustle culture and, of course, burnout. Kind of like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like having a foundational experience of wellness or lack thereof plays a huge role in having an empowered relationship with your wellness outlets as you go in your career. We're going to talk about this a little bit more when we talk about structures a little bit later. Many people who, again, I work with a wide range of people in my practice, but I've had people who in their 30s, 40s, 50s who have had no idea, for example, what therapy is, or couldn't even tell you what the difference between therapy or coaching or consulting is, or have any consistent wellness practice built out into their lives. So essentially focusing on this now is going to set you up for much greater ease of wellness in the future. I find particularly with people in their 20s and early 30s, there can be really easily to fall into the bucket of the things that I should be doing versus the things that I want to be doing. So you can look at that as it relates to your career, which we talk about a little bit, towards your friends, family, relationships, and this also it comes involved with how we're taking care of ourselves. Right there. And even if you look at, I like to say the Instagram era that we're in, where we only show like the fabulous best pictures of us everywhere. And that actually may not be the truth for most people or representation of what people want. So actually, if you can get really in touch with what wellness means for you, how is it that you want to take care of your body? What does nutrition look like for you? What does balance look like in your space? Can give you a lot more agency in saying, okay, I'm going to be doing these activities because I want to, not because this is the thing that I should be doing. And I mean, I'll raise my hand here. I fall into the should sometime, but when you at least have the juxtaposition of what I want, really gives you a powerful place to anchor yourself. And look, as a coach, so you have to excuse me because I get a little hyped up and corny when we start talking about possibilities, but there truly are so many benefits and possibilities of being the owner of your well-being journey, being responsible for how you show up into your spaces. I talk to a lot of people about it, even just we saw in the chat here, this work-life balance or this element of burnout or being at the effect of their jobs and their careers. Whereas when you take ownership of what you need to show up the way that you want, it can drastically change and put you on the offensive for saying, like, I'm not going to have burnout or unless it's something that I'm actively choosing. So being at choice for it, again, big part of the experience there. And then lastly, reduce stress and anxiety. Like it's actually just a more joyful, happy, and flowy, that's my word. I like to use vibey experience when you're fully sourced, when you're going into your work engagements, to your life, to your friends and families, and you're actually feeling up, fully present, fully alive, not on 20 or 30% in the energy tank and just having to keep going, 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 going. So again, I'm not going to spend too much more time on there, but I just really wanted to emphasize again, like why we're having this conversation. Is there anything that's particular that's listed out here that anybody has any questions on or would like further clarity on before we actually start exploring this a little bit further? Cool. It's like, yeah, Austin, you're talking, we're tracking. We see this. Now, how do we actually start getting some of these things in? Cool. All right. That's where we're going. That's where we're going. Yeah. Thanks for the audible head bug, Nicole. There we go. So what we're going to start off today, I'd like to just put a little bit of distinction between wellness practices and wellness structures. And practices is where we're actually going to spend a lot of our time. We're actually going to go through and actually going to physically go through a practice or two today while we have this time together. And so I want to lay the planks that a practice is any activity that generates an experience of well-being or wellness. So practices I mean, there are a number of them. Actually, it could be breath work, exercise, movement, drinking water, game, social engagement, leader, journaling. I mean, whatever, journaling twice and reading twice, because it can be that important, right? Like these are just a few examples. And what we really want to focus on here, these are specific activities or habits that you can bring about that generate, again, this feeling of well-being here for you. Before I transition to structures, because structures is going to be a little bit of different angle here, everyone can just put into the chat for like, what is a particular wellness practice that is particularly sourcing for you? So you're saying, all right, if I do this one, if I'm tired, if I'm burnout, this thing, we start to generate a little bit. Ooh, bullet journaling. Nice. Running. Okay. Hiking, going to the gym. Exercise, art, exercise. Yeah, I assume we have a lot of exercisers here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Well, appreciate the shares. And again, oh, we have someone else join us right now. You got that, Megan. So again, these are just actually activities that we can start to build in, and we'll focus in on what actually that looks like for each of you in a moment here. But I also want to contrast that to what wellness structures can be. And in a balanced and a holistic state of well-being, you have active practices that you're taking on, and this could be on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. And there could also be the potential to have support from more formalized structures. And when we're talking about wellness structures, these are systems that are designed to facilitate like outcome focused support. So think about using well-being to generate a specific goal or outcome. So examples of this could be mentoring, for example. It could be therapy, it could be consulting, it could be joining your alumni association, for an example. And we're going to define and give some very specific examples a little bit later. But I just wanted to have that language set out for here for people, from the practices into the structures. And we're going to learn and actually get an experience of both of these during our session today. Any questions on that before we actually dive a little bit? We're going to start our focus on the practices a little bit. Okay, cool. I trust that you all will say something if you're like, all right, Austin, it's time to go. Well, I'd like actually to have a little bit more of a broader discussion around this. So Megan, what we're going to do, we're actually going to go to our first breakout room session of the day. And I'd like you all to take a look at, as it currently stands today. So again, no judgment. What wellness practices do you empower? What are parts of your, like actively parts of your schedule routine that you're taking time out of your attention to do? The second part of this is going to be, what are some of the benefits that you receive specifically? Like, and the intention here is we're really trying to make the distinction of how it uniquely benefits us. So try and go a step further than, well, like it makes me feel good, but actually like, how does it make you feel good? What does it specifically do that sources you and that generates a certain experience that you're looking for? Also contradict that. Well, what's the impact when you neglect wellness, right? And whatever that means, maybe I'm supposed to get 8 hours of sleep and I'm getting 4. What's the impact of that, right? And then I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion. What is the biggest challenge in supporting any type of wellness practices or structures? Right? Because I would assert that most people on this thing are like, all right, Austin, you're talking our language. Yeah, I need more sleep. I need more time. I need more exercise. But I don't totally do that as much as I'd like. Well, actually, let's get really curious around what are some of those challenges, because the next portion of this is actually going to provide you with a structure to be really, really clear on what practices you're going to be taking. So we're going to be in our breakout rooms for around 8 minutes for this. And yeah, we're going to be in triads. And once we come, we'll debrief as a group and chat about it before we actually start playing with this a little bit further. So whenever we're ready, Megan, yeah, let's send us into our first breakout rooms of the day.
Awesome. Everybody should have access to join, and there'll be one group of 2 because Blair had to leave for a work event.
Okay, cool. Great. I am actually.
Do you want to hop into a breakout room, Austin?
Yeah, I think I will. I think I'm going to join room 1. Do you want to stay in the main room in case anybody comes up, or Megan, for any of this, if you'd like to participate too, then
yeah. Thanks.
Cool. I'd like to start the debrief more so on at least in our group, most people were pretty clear on like, all right, these are the benefits that I get when I do it. And here is what happens when I don't. I'm more so curious on what is the challenge in being consistent with your wellness practices. Anybody have anything they'd like to share or put into the space?
I can share, Austin. I don't mind. We're talking kind of in our group, but something that I definitely struggle with is like, time as a consistency factor, right? Like I live in the DMV, you go to work 9 to 5, you fight with traffic getting home. By the time you get home, if you don't do something right away, I feel like then it's like the day is lost. And obviously this is speaking kind of like a Monday through Friday situation, but finding that like the time to like dedicate to your wellness, whether it's exercise, like for me, exercise, reading, spending time with friends. And it's, you get home from work and it's 6:30, you want to eat dinner. Like, it's just, where's the time in the day to do things? And in order to get enough sleep, right? Like, it's just like, it feels like it's a never ending cycle. And that's something that I really struggle with from a consistency standpoint.
So great. Thank you for sharing, Nicole. If only I had 36 hours, I'd be the most well person ever. I just need more time. Yeah. And again, I don't say that to overstep like the challenge there, because I would assert, Nicole, probably everybody on this call experiencing some source of scarcity with time. And how is it that I fit all these things into my space? And it was very similar to one of the things that we heard in our group. And so one of the things that we're actually going to talk about can be really supportive is when you can identify what practices are most supportive for you, and then the actual practice of creating time and calendarizing this or empowering specific times within your days when you can do this. Because what we've seen, well, in my own personal research, what I've seen with a lot of my clients, most people are really clear on the things that they want to do, but they don't have any support structure anywhere on their calendar that says, hey, I have to do this. And then it generally goes to the wayside. We know what's predictable about us just continuing to go, 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 go. So we're actually I would like to share with you an active practice that has been really supportive for myself and many of the clients that I work with to actually generate this experience of well-being in the moment. So we talk about this element of time, which is a perfect segue, Nicole. And I'm actually going to guide you all through a simple breath work activity that has been here. Actually, let me just share my screen so I can actually show you a little bit more around it. Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Oh, okay, great. And this is called alternate nostril breathing. And part of why I thought it would be important if we're talking about these practices, because this is a practice, we don't have enough time for it today, but afterwards, everyone should explore breath work and the power of breath work as what that can do. There's been tremendous studies of what breath work does, from stress reduction, from overall sourcing and wellness. I like this particular activity because it can be done within around 3 minutes. So you can take this in between meetings, in the bathroom, maybe even in your commute on the way home. And it can be really, it calms your mind. There's been multiple tests that says that it actually calms down your nervous system, which helps settling stress. And part of it actually helps calibrate both the right and left hemispheres of your brain, which has a calming presence in itself. So I'm going to guide you through this. It's very simple to do it. So I'm actually going to take my glasses off for this one. And how it is, just like everyone to get very, very comfortable in their screen. And what you're going to do, you're going to take I'm a right-handed, so I take my right finger or my right hand, and I'm going to take my pointer, my index fingers together. And I'm actually going to put them on my forehead. And what we're going to do, I'm going to explain this beforehand. I'll show it and then I'll guide us through this together. So you can just watch me at first. It's actually a very simple practice of we're going to use our ring finger and our thumb finger to close off one nostril and breathe through the other. So it's going to look something like I have my finger, my pointer and middle finger on my head. And then I've got my ring finger on my right nostril, or on my left nostril, my thumb on my left. And what we're going to be doing, I'm going to start with my left. I'm going to breathe in for about a second through my left nostril. So my right thumb will be on my right nostril to close it out. So I'm just breathing through my left. At the top, I'm going to hold. So I'm going to clamp my ring finger down so that no air can come through my nostrils. Then I'm going to release my right nostril and breathe out for 2 seconds. And then after I breathe out for 2 seconds, I inhale again from the right, hold at the top. I switch my fingers after a second, and I exhale through the left. So I like to think of this as, if you think about, if you look at your nose as a mountain and there's a little climber, like the only way to get to the other side of the mountain is to go up and then to go down over. So you're breathing through your right nostril and then exhaling through your left. And then you're inhaling through your left nostril and exhaling through your right. And we do this process as short as like 5 iterations, can have an actual sensation in your body. So we're going to guide through that right now, and you can all feel that. So let's try that together. And again, do it whatever way that feels comfortable for you here. This is just to practice with it and just try and follow my specific cadence. We'll start with everyone breathing in through their left nostril. So again, when we're breathing in, we want to breathe in for about a second. We're going to hold at the top and then release, exhale for 2 seconds. Pause, and then we'll bring it again. Now walk us and guide us through this. So whenever you're ready, get comfortable. You should have your right nostril closed. Breathe in through your left nostril 1 second. Hold. Switch and exhale through your right. Breathe in through your right nostril. hold, breathe out through your left. Breathe in through your left. Exhale through your right. Go through about another iteration. And when you breathe out of your left nostril for the last time, we'll come back to. All right. Great. Whenever you're finished with your breathing, get yourself back together. You can come back to. And again, very simple breathing technique that I'd be curious to see even just a brief segment of this, anybody's impact that they feel just physiologically, like what's coming to them as a result of this exercise. And you come off mute or pop it into the chat, whichever you feel more comfortable. Yeah, feel more calm. Nice. Anyone else a little like, like they were trying to coordinate the right nostril and the left nostril, and it was like maybe a little confusing at first, which just to say, like, there's nothing wrong with that as well. But actually taking the practice, the more that you do it, it becomes natural and effortless. And even in just, again, 5 or 6 breaths, a minute or two, like we just did, can actually create a calming and relaxed sensation in your body. I've even had people, and even myself, feel like little tingles in your brain just from a result of doing okay, Amanda, so you're right there with me. Yeah. And look, it takes a little bit of practice with this, right? It's the first time that we're doing it all here. So I appreciate you all empowering that in the moment. But again, there've been a lot of studies with this particular breathing method that can be really supportive as a practice. Box breathing is another good one. As a follow-up, I'll send an additional list with some instructions and also a YouTube clipping of this that can guide you through this. Yeah. Just to expand your knowledge of the different breathwork exercises, along with some other practices that you can do in the moment to actively reduce stress and support well-being. The next thing that I want to introduce to you all is a wellness activity chalker. So yes, that taking some time to look at what are the wellness activities that we do right now currently prompts this question around, well, if I could actually create a list of all of the things that genuinely sourced me, what would that look like? And this is also going to be another follow-up from this particular workshop. And the wellness tracker actually works very simply. The prompt is going to be, I'm going to ask you all to take a few moments to do this right now. I'd like you to create a list. So you can either write this down physically or virtual at your computer space, a list of 10 wellness practices or activities that sources you in some capacity. And essentially what we're looking at from here is acts that either rejuvenate you, source you, are restorative, have you feeling less stress, anxiety, source, however it is that you want to share that. And the intention with this is actually to create a checklist to build, which we can build into our schedules to make sure that we're prioritizing on a daily perspective. And this is the tracker that I also use for myself, and actually can be a really great data point. I actually keep this right on my computer, and you can check which of the activities that I've declared, as said, have most supported for me. What's my consistency with this? Which are the ones that I am, all right, I definitely make time to empower this one. And what are the ones where I'm like, not so much. And that tends to fall on the wayside, and give you a really good indicator of where you might be able to put some additional time, energy, and attention towards. So again, I just have a few examples that people that I work with have used. waking up before 6 a.m. For some people, for other people, that might not be very sourcing. 20 minutes of physical activity, drinking a gallon of water. We're looking for specific elements, and it doesn't all have to be in the physical or mental. It could be, again, spiritual. Maybe it's taking time to pray or meditate. It could be something emotional. Maybe I need to experience laughter or joy. I need to watch a funny YouTube clip as that's actually sourcing to me. So everyone, please take 2 minutes and see if you can actually create a list. It doesn't have to be in chronological order right now, but create a list of 10 items that are specifically sourcing for you. I'll give us 2 minutes, or when you're finished with it, put your favorite emoji into the chat. Oh, hey, Manor. We're actually just doing an activity where we're getting clear on what specific wellness or sourcing activities are supported for us. So create a list of 10 wellness practice or activities that are supportive for you. And it's the stretch. That's why we're doing 10. What if we're in a space where we're actually abundantly supported from a wellness perspective? Give us about another minute or so. Yeah. Yeah, Amanda, it's a great point. And that's actually part of what this exercise is. It's like, wait, I'm not even doing one. I got to figure out 10. And part of this is actually the ideation to really looking, well, what are the things that are sourcing for you? And look, for most of us, and look, the first time I did this, I was like, all right, I got a solid 4. And if we start with 4, then that's great. And we can build on top of that, which is general than the baseline of 0 or 1, which most of us might default to. So part of this exercise is actually really look, well, what could those things be? And my invitation would be keep it simple. Things is like, you know what? If I drink a glass of water a day in my morning or in my afternoon, wellness check. If I take 5 minutes to go on a walk, if I do 10 push-ups, if I send a text to a loved one, it could be anything, but it's really trying to isolate what are the things that are specifically supportive and useful for you. Well, here, we're going to continue this, and there's going to be an element of this, and we're going to follow up afterwards where I'm actually going to share with all of you a tracker where you can put this in for whether you have 1, 2, 10 different wellness practices to track these afterwards. But I'd be curious, how, given Amanda and Nicole, your feedback there, how many practices, what were the number of practices that each of you were able to come up with here? And again, judgment-free zone, but actually just to get clear on like, well, what was it for you? Okay, 5. All right. 5. All right. Nice. Nice. Well, and even just considering that, now you have 5. Oh, awesome, Amanda. You have at least 5 to 7 different areas where another really important element of this is that you can actually start building these into your schedule. Creating a calendar block. All right, this is my time where I drink my water. This is where time where I do my push-ups. This is where I time where I pray in the morning as additional support structure here. So for the services of time here, I want to also make sure to give a little bit of light and education on some different wellness structures, because we spent a lot of our time focusing on specific practices here. And what I've seen is one of the biggest barriers to people actually exploring different wellness structures is that they just don't know what they are, or they might have a negative stigma around like what it means. Like I'll speak for myself. The first time that like I heard about therapy, I was like, wait, what? I don't need, there's nothing wrong with me. What would I need therapy for? As opposed to like looking at it as a resource that actually helps me get more complete and clear to be really own how is it that I want to show up in different spaces. So I share that just holistically. I want to make sure that people have just some different avenues highlighted to them that could be at your disposal as you navigate your career and build a life-based and holistic wellness. So I'm going to define these 3 big blocks here, and then we'll have an opportunity to talk about them a little bit more as we go on. So we're just going to start off with therapy, and I'm going to keep this just like very high level, but the intention is to equip people with, hey, what actually is this thing? Generally think about as therapy as a past-based conversation. You're looking to either heal or get complete, which it could be around instances in your past. It could be specific traumas. It could even be very supportive in treating a medically diagnosed ailment. But the big key differentiator there is really healing or getting complete around things that have happened in your past. Coaching, and as a coach, I talk to a lot of people about this. Most people are like, oh, coaching's great, but I actually have no idea what that is. So to provide a little bit more of a framework, coaching is a forward-focused conversation. It's not as important to, if we're looking at the lens of wellness, what wellness you've done in the past, or what are your current wellness practices are right now, but what is your desire? What do you actually want from wellness? And how can we build practices and move you towards that future state? Who do you need to be? What do you need to generate? What are patterns that are predictable that we can look at that can actually serve the thing that you want? And then lastly, there's consulting. And I think this is a really important distinction for a lot of people, because most people in my experience conflate coaching and consulting, where they look at a coach and be like, oh, you're supposed to tell me what to do. Where actually a coach is actually designed to empower you to explore what thing that you uniquely need. And a consultant actually very well does that. They say, hey, this is the thing that you should do to find a specific outcome. So let's say it's, I guess this summer is almost ending, but let's say we're getting ready for beach season 23. And I'm saying, all right, I want to be 7 or 8% body fat. You might hire a nutritionalist or a private instructor to say how much, what exercises might I need to do? How much sleep that might need to get? What might be my dietary regimen as to reach a specific body fat percentage by X date? And you'd be following their specific guidance or expertise. And so these are the most common wellness structures that most people, and I'll say particularly folks within their 20s and early 30s, have very little capacity with. So part of this is actually just educating, well, here, what is therapy and how might that conversation look at? What is a coaching conversation? And then actually, how might I use a consultant and how might these correlate and support my holistic wellness experience? So before we go on any further than that, I know that was a brief high level overview, but I do want to make sure that's clear and I'm not adding any more confusion into that. Could you get a thumbs up, or does anybody have any questions around any of these distinctions? All right, thumbs up. Great. Cool. So I'm going to, again, because of time, and I want to create a little bit of space at the end to actually be able to talk a little bit more about how do we create this moving forward. I have a few invitations for everyone here with the intention to consistently be more intentional around what your specific wellness needs are. And the first one is to finalize your wellness tracker. So I know like 10 is like, a stretch, oh woman, what are those things? But part of this activity is to look at, again, what is this concept? If I was abundantly supported in my individual wellness practices, what would that mean for my relationship with my career, my relationship with my friends, my relationship with adventure, my relationship with free time? And so taking the time to actually put these 10 elements here, and the invitation would be to actually track yourself for a week or so. Which are the ones that are natural, come to me, that I'm making time to empower, and which are the ones that might be falling by the wayside, or I might need a little bit of additional support in making sure that comes up? Whether that's maybe I'm stacking habits where I'm doing multiple wellness habits at the same time. Perhaps it's calendarizing. Perhaps it's, really going into strategy number 2. Maybe I'm creating a support group or a buddy to hold me accountable for this. And my second invitation for all of you, if we're looking in this idea of wellness, is find a wellness accountability buddy. And this is a really, really powerful framework, simple but powerful. Because you may ask the question, what's predictable for almost anybody trying to accomplish anything if they do it on their own, right? There's not a layer of defense to catch them if one day they're like, okay, no, I'm not going to do this. And there's been a lot of people that say, all right, I'm less likely to let somebody else down than I am to like let somebody else down versus myself. So actually find somebody where you can actually have a conversation around what wellness looks like in your specific life, whether that's practices or structures, and you partner with them to check in with you. How am I doing with my wellness accountability? Like how are my different wellness structures going? Be really supportive in creating this practice of being sticky to make sure that these are continually being prioritized. And, a lot of this, again, conversation today is focused on practice and support structures, but I'd like to just open it up as we've spent some really dedicated time in looking at like the importance of wellness and what this might mean for us. But what do you see as the impact of empowering either wellness practices or support structures as it relates to your career? That'll be the first one, or even just look at in your life. Like, what is the potential impact on that for you? Again, chat, or we can just pop off on mute. We have a smaller group here, but I'd like to get reducing burnout. Yeah. Okay. Kayla, I see you there. Absolutely. What else? Talk to me about resources for if we are aware of boss with zero work-life balance and respect for the importance of. Oh, Amanda. Yeah, you're dropping some gold right here, right now. And so that could be a much longer conversation in itself. But what I will say here is, what's the thing that you can own about your specific wellness structures, whether that's maybe even before you're coming into the office or you're entering to the spaces, to really be mindful of how you're showing up. And what we've noticed, each workplace and culture and environment is different, but many people, particularly those we've seen younger in their careers, are actually not advocating for what their specific needs may be. So actually the willingness to be able to share for me to perform the way that I need to, these are some things that are really supportive. How actually do we build that into my work or my career experience, Amanda? So again, it's variable based on everyone's different environment, job function or whatnot. But I would start by just advocating and seeing what's the thing that you might be able to own even prior coming into work or during work to give you some experience of wellness. And just to like review briefly, and again, you're all gonna have this slide deck afterwards, along with the instructional guide for some active breathing practice and techniques to reduce stress or bring about wellness in the moment, and the wellness tracker that will follow up afterwards. But in short, like, wellness is something that supports good health and your holistic well-being. It's very easy for it to get overlooked and for us to get into our normal patterns of burnout, or I'll get to this later, or I won't do this now. So actually looking at what structures, whether that's practices or specific structures or outlets that can actually give me abundant support to making sure I'm showing up as I intend, can be wildly transformational in, again, how you're showing up in all your different experiences. So I know, Amanda, you want to, or excuse me, Megan, you want to have an announcement right before we drop, but I just want to open up. Are there any questions that anybody has on this conversation of wellness or support structures that we have before we look to wrap today? Cool. And I'll also share, because look, even Amanda, what you put into the chat, and people might have some very specific elements of how this might work for me, even in addition to the tracking that we have here. As a part of working with University of Maryland, anybody who did attend this particular workshop or webinar is actually going to have the opportunity to have a complimentary 60-minute coaching conversation. So, and the intention of this is really twofold. Is one, hopefully you have intellectually a better understanding of how this structure may support your experience, and to actually give you the opportunity, if you do have specific questions around how this relates to your wellness, you can actually have a coaching conversation around what that looks like and actually creating that within your life. So I just wanted to know, it is totally optional, but you will have that at your disposal if you do choose. And I encourage any of you all to connect and we can get the conversation moving forward. I'm a big Terp lover and believer. Anybody up in New York City, let us know. We've got a lot of different things going on in our alumni association, and I'd love to be able to, again, continue partnership, connection, and networking and be of service to your own individual wellness pursuits. So thank you so much. And Megan, I'm going to pass it over to you before we wrap today.
I realize I'm on mute. Awesome. Thanks so much, Austin. I'm going to stop the recording.